Welcome to this jazz guitar lesson, and this is going to be an introduction to the whole tone scale. Now I bring this subject up because the standard of the month on my channel this month is Someday My Prince Will Come. And that features quite a few dominant 7 sharp 5 chords. So in those first 4 bars you've got D7 sharp 5 and G7 sharp 5. Now a really good choice in terms of soloing over those is the whole tone scale. So in this lesson I'll break down what the scale is, how you can practice it, and how you can use it. Now whenever I teach or learn a new scale, I like to look at it on one string first because I think it's easier to see the intervals then and make sense of it. And this is a pretty straightforward scale when it comes to intervals to clues in the title. We start on a C, we're going to go a whole tone to fret 3 to a D, keep going up by the same distance to an E, same distance again, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, then we're back to the octave of where we started C. So it has quite an interesting quality. It's quite odd. It's often used in film in like dreamlike kind of sequences, and in terms of jazz guitar, that's not how we're going to use it. Obviously, it is best used on dominant chords, which we'll come back to later. Now, because it's made up of the same interval repeating over and over, there's actually only 2 whole tone scales. The C whole tone, because if I started a D whole tone, say from fret 3, I'd be playing exactly the same notes but from D to D. D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C, D. Wherever I start in the scale I'm going to play those same 6 notes. Now if I start from C sharp, that will give us the other whole tone scale. So C sharp, D sharp, F, G, A, B, C sharp. And I've written on the musical examples there the enharmonic equivalent, so the flats, but just keeping it in sharps. So those 2 scales, the C whole tone and the C sharp whole tone, take the 12 notes in our system and just each have 6 notes, and they're always a tone apart, which on the guitar is very visually easy to find. So unlike where the major scale, you need to learn your major scale and be able to play it in B flat, in E flat, D, A, or whatever other scale, in this really there are only 2, and the intervals, as they keep repeating, if you want to do D whole tone, E whole tone, it is just all the same. So that's one good thing about this scale. Whenever getting to grips with a new scale, it's important to be able to find it on the fretboard. I like to find scales from the roots on the E, the A, the D, the G, so I've got good coverage on the fretboard, then kind of link up those positions if you like. This, because of the intervals, I think it presents the challenge of what's the best way to fret it, finger it on the guitar. Let me just play it in some 1 octave positions for C whole tone. So this is using 3 notes per string, as often people like to do it. Now I'm using 3 digits where we're playing 3 notes on a string there, like that. But you might find it easier to just use 2. Use the same finger for the 2nd and 3rd note, like this. Kind of less cooks in the kitchen. From the A string, same scale. D string, G string. That one's a bit different because of the intervals of the open string. You might find 3 notes per string's uncomfortable to do, so you could do 2 notes per string, like this. Exactly the same thing, just a different way to find it. Might make more sense to your brain, more sense to your fingers, so there's 2 ways you can do it there. In order to understand how we use this scale, we need to understand the intervals. Let's go back to 1 string. So, root, 2nd, major 3rd. This is a flat 5 or sharp 11. Got the sharp 5 here. Got the flat 7, and then the octave. So this, I predominantly use this over dominant 7th sharp 5 chords. And I'll tell you why, because if you build a triad from this scale, it gives you what's referred to as an augmented triad, which would be sometimes written on music as just C+, and it's not someone grading the music, that's the shorthand for augmented. So it's that sharp 5 which gives it that character and why it works well against this chord. And one little aside just to say, because this scale just continues, D whole tone is the same as C whole tone, right? The C whole tone, if you move everything up a tone, it'll be good for D7 sharp 5, E7 sharp 5, F sharp 7 sharp 5, G sharp 7 sharp 5, A flat or B flat 7 sharp 5 as well. So the scale will just work for all of the roots, all of the notes if you like. So this scale contains C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp back to C. So if you've got a dominant 7th sharp 5 chord off any of those roots, you can use this scale. Doesn't have to be C. Say if you've got E7 sharp 5 as a chord in a song, you can use E whole tone, or C whole tone will actually include the same notes, because remember there's only 2 versions of these scales. Whenever I get to grips with the scale, I also like to play it in thirds. Now this one's interesting to play in thirds because it only gives you major thirds. So sounds quite spooky. Harmonic thirds, that is, playing them at the same time, one after another. Descending. Reverse the order. And I can just keep going. It's going to give me the same shape up and down the fretboard. Then you add a third above the third, which gives you the 1, 3 and a sharp 5 because it's augmented. Augmented triad. So every triad I'm going to play here is the same. It's always an augmented. 1, 3, sharp 5. C augmented. D augmented. E augmented. F sharp. G sharp. A sharp. Back to C. And just playing those. Vary the direction. I could play that over a C7 sharp 5, any of those, and they would sound quite out and interesting for a second or two. And the way you could use it over a song, say the chord was C7 sharp 5, you could use any of those triads, or you could use the scale to create a little melody, and it will sound outside. Going back to the song I talked about, the standard of the month, Someday My Prince Will Come, B flat major 7 to D7 sharp 5. Well, what could we do here? Well, what we could do, we could play, just looking at what I've written down for you guys, say against the B flat, you've got B flat major 7 arpeggio. And then on the D7 sharp 5, you play the D whole tone. So you hear that sound there, you can hear that reflecting the chord changes. We could put that into some sort of line. Say we've got the first 2 chords, could go like B flat major idea, 1 and 2 and 3 and. So I'm doing B flat major, root, 2nd, root, 7th, 6, 5, and then whole tone here. So that's from D whole tone. Yeah, if you're getting used to this, you might have to just play the scale. There, I'm just playing the whole tone scale up or down. Like that. I'm just playing the scale very matter of fact like. But another example I've written down for you guys. 1, 2, 3. Like that. So there's that idea taken from the whole tone there. So you can see it's going to work against those dominant 7th sharp 5 chords. So wherever you see that, you can use this scale just from the root of whatever the chord is. Sometimes I will also use it on just a plain major, just for an outside sound. Maybe on a blues just before you change to the 4 chord, might do it there. Or if you've got long times on a dominant, it can be interesting because it creates a very peculiar sound. I just wanted to give some examples there so you could hear when that whole tone sound comes in, and it does sound different and odd, and it reflects that chord change. Getting used to a scale, I think one of the tricky things is getting used to, well, seeing how much space it takes up rhythmically. So one thing I put on the PDF today is if you played this scale in quarter notes, and I might use my metronome here, look, let's set it, we'll go back to 4/4. 80 BPM, look, if I play in quarter notes, the scale's going to run out before the end of the bar. 2, 3, 4. I mean by the end of the second bar there. So it's going 3, 4. D whole tone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's how much space that's going to take up. In eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, finishing on a quarter note there. So that would fill up the whole bar if I play a quarter note at the end. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now, triplets. They work really well with the 3 notes per string aspect. And I just think when you're practicing a new scale, to help you when it comes to improvising, because one of the difficult things about making up phrases on the spot is making sure you don't lose time, essentially, and your phrases fit, you know, against the form and stuff like that. So when you're practicing scales, it's not just willy-nilly practice them, you're trying to rhythmically do them in one way or another to fit in whatever it might be, a bar or 2 bars or 3 bars. Or maybe more rhythmically interesting that, you know, coming in before the bar starts or after the bar starts. Either way, it's about, with whatever rhythm you're doing, knowing how much space that is taking up and learning to fill that. And then obviously you can have a mess around with, you know, creating ideas with the scale. And I also like to use the triad, so try and learn it in triads on the different strings off the A string. And I will use them like that. That's down. Add note on top. Just go a whole tone above the top note. And like so forth. Finding what other strings can be interesting. Just look at the ones I've written out for you actually. Off the D string, the shape's different because of the intervals between the open strings. Sometimes I use them like this as well, and then off the top 3 strings because the B string again. Or you can hear that dream. Django would do stuff like that, and it does sound a bit quirky and interesting. If you learn to connect up some of those triads, you can do bigger arpeggios, like say C augmented. Do the same from D. E. And so on. You can go to different keys. I personally, final thing actually I'd probably add is the cool thing about this scale when you're trying to improvise with it. Say if you're on a dominant chord for a long time, like say start of Caravan, say on C so at the start for ages. If you play an idea, say this is C, D, E, F sharp and back down. Because of the symmetrical nature of the scale, I could move that idea down a tone, down a tone again, and I can just keep moving it around. Or I could go up in a bigger distance, I could go up by a major third. If you let you hear that sort of semblance and link between the idea, helps, you know, good idea for phrasing, you get the call and response kind of feel. But I can't be too exhaustive in today's lesson, there's only so much I can fit into these videos. So really I just wanted to introduce the scale to you. You know, hum it, sing it as you practice it to get used to the sound of it. Some people find these kind of more odd outside sounding scales harder to create musical ideas from. Naturally, because of the intervals of it, it's going to create more out there ideas, and dominants take those better than any other chords. So that's the place to experiment them with. Say you take a 2-5-1 in C, there on the G I did whole tone triads, where I could just there I just went up the scale, and it can be just as simple as that to begin with. That's probably, you know, how I would have started with it back in the day when I first played it. I mean, I'm sure I would have played it on the piano before I did on the guitar, but nonetheless. Other things is obviously musical examples. Thelonious Monk was a big advocate of the scale, and you hear it a lot in Django Reinhardt's, especially his compositions actually, and in his playing over dominance too. But you got any questions, you leave them below. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Don't forget, jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday with myself, Andy. Until next time, you take care.